This is Cabbie Richards, and you're listening to Vibe 105.
This is Vibe Talks, exclusively on Vibe 105.
Hey, everybody, this is Giancarlo Aulino reporting for Vibe 105 with a Vibe Talks segment, and I am happy to be joined by my guest today, who's making his return here to the Vibe 105 airwaves. He is the executive producer of betting content at Sportsnet. He's Cabbie Richards. How you doing, Cabbie?
Good vibes, good vibes, good vibes. Immaculate vibes. I'm wonderful. And you?
I'm doing great. And Cabbie, this is Black History Month now coming up here. And you're a broadcaster that a lot of kids have grown up watching, myself included. But in terms of the Black community, who are some of your role models that you grew up watching that inspired you to get involved in broadcasting?
Boy. When I was young, I didn't think that television was possible for me. I just didn't have an avenue or a pathway to be on TV. So when I was younger, I was enamored with actors in movies, and I wanted to be a movie star. So it was Denzel Washington. I saw what Will Smith was doing on television, Martin Lawrence. So, and even subconsciously, Ahmad Rashad hosting NBA Inside Stuff. I didn't know that having a job in television was even possible, but those four men helped to inform me and certainly entertain me. And I think I borrowed bits and pieces from them at various times in my life. And I owe them some money as a result, because I haven't paid for all the creative licensing that I've been doing.
Like even going on to that in your career, what I liked about it at theScore, like yourself, Tim McAuliffe, 660, like it was kind of experimenting. Like it wasn't the same format you would see on other networks. And I think it's what set theScore up a lot apart from everyone. Like you were different. It looked like you guys were having a lot of fun. It wasn't that robotic delivery. So what was it at the time over there? And just in that environment, did you feel any pushback at all?
We were led by a gentleman named Anthony Ciccione, and he allowed us to be our full creative selves. We were the antithesis of TSN at the time and Sportsnet to a certain degree. So because we were the smaller network, we could take bigger chances. And it was really a meritocracy over there. Like if you worked hard and you had an interesting perspective, or you had a point of view, or even like you were the next person up, then you got a shot. And a lot of the talent started in the edit suites when they were voicing highlights, and then they made appearances on the air. And Anthony, it was a very creative environment. There was a lot of competition too, because everybody wanted to be like the funniest or the wittiest and that sort of thing. But it was sometimes playful, sometimes more competitive, but it was a great learning experience and a learning environment, because we were such a small shop that we could take bigger swings, and we can lean into sports that were neglected by the other two networks. We leaned into basketball. We leaned into college hoops and college football. We leaned into soccer. We had like soccer shows when the other networks didn't, when it wasn't sexy to have soccer. So the entire environment of theScore was like a creator economy. It was like a creator house, where you like the FaZe Clan or Jake Paul's original, was it Team 10 or whatever? Like it was kind of like that. Everybody was young, under 30. Most people were under 30, and the environment was very conducive to creators.
And I'm sure at the time too, like criticism, like in every career, you're going to have that. So at the time, like how did you stay the course? Because I'm sure you've had some ups and downs. Like it's theScore wasn't as big as obviously TSN in terms of how much money they were able to go and flow different programs. So how did you stick the course there and continue in a positive manner?
When there were criticisms, I mean, thankfully I came up before social media, so I wasn't listening, or I wasn't reading insults in my pocket like every 5 seconds. There were people in the industry who didn't like my style, and I always remembered the audience doesn't care how hard it is. You have a certain amount of time, just go in and get out. It was like a Navy SEAL mission. But mostly it's like, I just remember like the audience doesn't care how hard this is. Like if there's a shot in Avatar 2, Way of Water, that was like a 17-minute continuous shot in the water, in the air, in the trees, back in the water, over the blah, blah, blah. Like the audience watching, they don't know that shot could have cost $118 million. They just want to watch something cool, or they want to watch something that entertains them. And I had that mindset early on. So there were people that weren't fans of my style. And certainly there were a fair amount of PR directors that prevented me from getting to players. And when I formed relationships with players, then I could circumvent them. But I just thankfully, I didn't read a lot of negativity. And if I did experience some, I just let it roll off of me because I had a job to do. And every week I had to feed theScore machine and pump out a new edition of Cabbie on the Street. And that was it. Simple.
And what does it mean to you when, young broadcasters come up and they see that, I don't want to make you feel old, but like you were who they were watching when they were growing up, and that's their inspiration. It's
very rewarding. And we operated in a little bit of a vacuum. My man D and I and some of the editors that edited these segments, because we would go out and shoot with these athletes, come back and just sit in a dark edit suite for 3 or 4 days, cutting up this segment, finding highlights, adding graphics, and trying to figure out a way to tell the story about how guys tape their knobs, or, today is January 26th. So I think of Kobe, and it's like, how am I going to tell the story of me being able to fly in a helicopter with him, go to a game, see him hit a game winner over Dwayne Wade. And like, what's that going to look like? That was our environment when we were creating these segments. So we didn't really know how the audience experienced it, because they were largely experiencing it, watching these segments in their homes, either on their computers or on their TVs. So when someone refers to some of my previous work, it's very rewarding. It feels like there was a connection to people, and mostly strangers, but that was very cool.
Yeah, and I just remember the last time you joined us here, we were bringing up like MJ, how you just hugged him on the golf course, and that resonated because everybody would just do the same thing. It's MichaelJordan. So like ever since then, did you notice that more athletes saw, okay, we see the kind of work he's doing, it was a little bit easier to maybe get their time a little bit, or were there still like some situations where they were hesitant to kind of do those kind of segments?
Well, we made sure that we always did right by the athletes. And by that, I mean, in the early days, bro, we would burn DVDs and send them to the PR guys. Hey, make sure this athlete sees it. Thanks again, with a little handwritten note. So the teams would get these DVDs. Now, I don't know if the athletes watched them, but we sent them out like I'd say from 2005 to 2000 and maybe till 2000, maybe 10. And that was our calling card. And because we always wanted to put athletes in the best light and show them as affable and entertaining, I think that would help us get another interview with that athlete. And then when athletes are coming through Canada and they're, theScore is one of the channels that they can watch, and it looks kind of similar to ESPN News because of the ticker and just the loop, then they'll be like, oh, they might see my stuff from time to time. And they'll be like, oh, I like this. Weirdly, I had this friendship with Donnie Wahlberg. Donnie Wahlberg was shooting 1 or 2 of the Saw movies in Toronto. And he would be here for 2 or 3 months at a time in different years, and then would see my stuff. So I developed a friendship with Donnie Wahlberg. My man D and I went to a New Kids on the Block concert. We were probably like 8 rows away from the stage, and we were on our phones for 90 minutes as 19,898 women were just screaming for 90 straight minutes. We were just on our phones and we're like, hey, this is cool. Kinda. I think it was like, it's cool to be in this environment watching these guys perform. But really, we just wanted to hang out with the dude afterwards, which we did. And that story is just to say that I wouldn't know who was watching and when they were watching theScore. So if somebody saw the segments that weren't familiar or were familiar, then hopefully they saw something they liked and they knew that, hey, I can let my guard down. This looks like fun and not a traditional interview.
That's great. And just even transitioning now, because something that's also changing in sports broadcasts, especially, is betting. And just with SN betting and just seeing you during the broadcast here on Hockey Night in Canada, how did this all come about for you in rejoining Sportsnet?
I was in Las Vegas for a couple of years working with Bleacher Report, and then the opportunity came up to come back home and launch a brand, like launch the betting content at Sportsnet. It was daunting, but it was a challenge that I was up for. And it's been rewarding at times, just seeing the growth of SN Bets, seeing how we're integrated, how betting is integrated into various live events. And our ethos is, we're the fun community. We want to bring good vibes. And like, betting is for entertainment and done in group settings with buddies or whatnot. It's not a way that some people can make money, but that's not our vibe. We're like, we want to give you information to make more informed bets. And we want to ride with you if you're winning or you're losing. We have a segment every week called Monday Morning Misery, where our own crew, we talk about our losses. And that's every weekend. Like, none of us are professionals. We're guys betting $2, $5, $10 on stupid parlays, or we might lock in a Mitch Marner anytime goal or a Pascal Siakam over 7.5 rebounding prop, or, when we're taping this, the Super Bowl hasn't happened yet, but over the course of the football season, might bet on a Travis Kelce touchdown or a Jalen Hurts rushing touchdown or whatever. So it's been cool to integrate betting into the conversation as part of the sports narrative, because betting has been around for decades and it just hasn't been as mainstream as it is now. But betting often informs the narrative. If a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain, that's going to affect who is favored and who is the underdog in the matchup, because Patrick Mahomes should win his second MVP this season because he threw for 41 touchdowns and he led the league in passing, another 5,000-yard season, and led the AFC, like their team 14-3, like number one seed in the AFC. So that plays a part in the narrative, which would be a part of any broadcast. But now there's some numbers associated and some prices associated to the outcomes of games.
Yeah, you bring up a great point, because I even remember at the World Cup, like Saudi Arabia versus Argentina, they were massive underdogs. And when they actually get the job done and get the win, it heightens like everything that happened, and it makes it even more of an accomplishment than it was. And I guess from my perspective, like just watching it, understanding about what you guys are talking about in terms of parlays, but for somebody who's just watching for the first time, who's not really familiar with sports betting, like, what's your message to them, and what do you hope they gain out of the broadcast?
My message is, if you are going to participate, then do it slowly. Like, literally play at your own pace. Nobody is pocket watching. Maybe try $1 or $2, or bet with friends while you're watching a game. It's always a more communal experience to be watching AFC Championship or NFC Championship or the March Madness tournament, or like a Saturday night hockey game with some friends. Or even if you're not physically in a room with your friends, then just even like a group chat. I have multiple group chats where we're talking about our bets, and like in my group chats, there are varying salaries. Like, there's a scale of, some guys are more blue collar and some guys are like executives or whatever. And like, we're dudes that are betting like literally $6 or $7, like nothing that's going to really affect your bankroll or your bank account, just trying to play smart. But really, it's fun when you are in a group setting with your friends and just, putting a couple bucks on the outcome of a game just to heighten the experience. But it's not for everybody. So I don't want to make it seem like everybody should just jump in. But if you are curious, then if you do sign up for a sports book, or just literally just play with what you're comfortable losing. And if that's $1 or if that's $2, then that should be your limit, because you don't want to jump into the deep end and force yourself to swim, because it's It's just not the way to approach betting on sports.
Yeah, it's a great message too, because like I think when maybe a few people, if they watch it for the first time, they're thinking, okay, you're telling me that this is a good bet to go in like 20 points on a player. Like you're not asking them to mortgage their house. Keep it small, keep it something where they're going to have fun. And if they want to do it, obviously do it responsibly. And I guess this is something where more and more, like the next few years, especially since it's been legalized in Ontario, have you noticed more content driven on sports, like just betting aspects of it, be more popular than some of your Cabbie on the Street videos?
That I don't know. I haven't looked. I'm not exactly sure how to measure that. There are certainly more commercials and there's certainly more players in the market. So for people who aren't into betting, it's going to feel like almost like an avalanche, like this wave of just betting information and exposure. So that part I know we haven't had a great response from people who aren't into betting, and we totally understand that. As far as like what is getting like higher views, my betting stuff or my old school interviews, I think my interviews, but I don't know. I haven't checked. I haven't been on YouTube to check my own stuff in a while. And I don't even know if my betting stuff is really even on YouTube. And one thing SN Bets we don't do is we're not recommending plays. We'll celebrate parlays and we'll say, hey, like we might have some videos where, hey, this person is hot right now, like or a trend. But generally, we're not telling people where to bet. There is one segment that I'm a part of called LFG, where we give a long shot, a favorite, and a gut feeling pick on Thursdays. And that's the closest thing we're doing to recommending a bet. But those are just like three people that appear in the segment. That's their personal, that's a game or a side that they like. And betting it's almost impossible to make a living on it. Like it's very, very hard. You have to win. They say a 55% clip, but it's probably more to 60% clip with the juice on some of the plays. Like if you're this weekend or tomorrow, or I'm not sure when this is being posted, but the Maple Leafs are playing the Ottawa Senators soon, and Ottawa will be a heavy underdog. So if you bet on the Leafs, you might have to pay $2 to win $1. So accounting for how much you have to earn to make a living on betting, you have to win at like, I'd say like 60% to be comfortable. And that also depends on how much you're wagering. So it's the fantasy is cool. And it's like fun dreaming. Like you're basically, in some cases when you're locking in like a 15 leg parlay, which is you are betting on 15 different outcomes and all of them have to, be correct in order for you to get a payday. It's like buying a lottery ticket. And we've been exposed to lotteries for like, I don't know, 5 decades in this country, and maybe even longer. I feel like lotteries have been around long before I was born. So people are aware of like that fantasy aspect of either buying lottery tickets or gambling as a lottery ticket.
Have you seen any crazy ones like those 15 leggers? I've seen on Twitter, but like, has anybody tagged you in like just their posts? And it's like, you know what, this is a massive win. I can't believe this actually went through.
No, there was a guy who had one for like 75K if Travis Kelce scored first in, it was either, I think it was a divisional round. Yeah, because Casey had a bye. And the first scorer was like, it was somebody else, but it was like 5 or 6 legs. The crazy ones are when people wager like $5,000 to win like 2 million. Like you're wagering $5,000 on a parlay. Like that is insane to me. My parlays literally are $5. Like $5. What I would spend on 2 slices of pizza. Actually, maybe that's closer to $9, but or like a sub is like, okay, I shouldn't be eating this sub because it's a full loaf of bread and the carbs are just going to sit right in my gut. But that's kind of how I justified in my brain. I'm like, this is like lunch. And then I lose it and I still go buy the sub anyway for $6.99. So I'm just like spending more than I need to, but I haven't been tagged in any personal ones. When I was at Bleacher Report, this guy, Sam Richmond, who was like the creative leader and like the leader of our at Bleacher was BR betting team. And he befriended Mattress Mac, Jim McElvaney. I can't remember what his last name is, but this furniture magnate in Houston. And Mattress Mac, I met him in 19, and he just kept losing big events and betting millions on. And he's from Houston, so he'd always bet on the Astros, and the Astros are like always in the World Series. So Jim, always betting on the Astros. And then I believe the Astros won in 17, and then they won in 2022. But when they won in 2022, his payday was like $10 million. No. Oh, he wagered 10 million and he won 75 million. So this guy must have lost, I'm going to ballpark it, in the time that I knew him, in the 2 years at somewhere 15 mil, and wow. $50 million to regular people that's like retirement money. But to this guy, that was how he was entertained himself. That was his vice, was sports betting. And he could afford to lose that money because he kept coming back and kept doing it. And he had the wealth behind him. And then eventually he hit his huge payday. And, salute to Mattress Mac for that 2022 Houston Astros World Series.
Yeah, just him watching that must have been a sight of itself.
Oh man, I'm surprised he didn't faint. This guy or like pass out. This guy's like in his 70s. Like he's an old man. And just that excitement,
Even like I remember, I think he was the one that also did it on the Dallas Cowboys on the weekend recently. And unfortunately luck didn't go his way again.
That's right. They lost 19-12 to Philly. And he'll be back. March Madness is around the corner. So he'll put Lord knows how much on Kentucky, or actually, no, he's from Houston, and Houston and Baylor are really good college basketball teams. Maybe he'll put some dough on either one of those teams to win the tournament. I want to say Houston is ranked second at the time of this recording, and Baylor's in the top 25. So legit shots for either team. So he could, there could be another story on BR betting where the BR betting crew is in, I don't know where the Final Four is this year, but they're with Mattress Mac and just watching this whole thing, play out before their eyes.
Before you're mentioning they're like just $5, like comparing it to, let's say something you're going to go buy like a slice of pizza, sub. Speaking of food there, like the Super Bowl is known for that. So what's your go-to choice when you're watching the Super Bowl?
Anything fried in butter and covered in cheese. Like I'm there to earn my 11,000 calories in one sitting. We actually have a watch party that we're planning with the SM Bets crew and another crew. So probably I'm going to say minimum 2 pounds of wings, minimum. And then like a full bowl of nacho chip, like a Tostito, like the lime flavored Tostitos, hot sauce. I need hot flavor. And then by like the second half, I'll probably eat some cold pizza that's been sitting in a box for an hour. They're like, that's pretty good. So I'm going to hit that 11,000 calorie intake. It would be smart for me to do some cardio in the morning or work out in the morning so I can earn those calories, but we'll see what happens on that Sunday.
And do you have an early prediction? Like if we're going to forecast this based on the Final Four right now, and then once this airs, maybe it'll look good. Do you have a prediction for the final?
Let me preface this with, I've never correctly predicted the outcome of the Super Bowl. So I put a few dollars on all four of the teams that are in the running right now. So it's Philadelphia. Who's it? Philadelphia, San Francisco, Kansas City, and Cincinnati. So I sprinkled it around. About mid-season, I said out loud or in a group chat that like it's the Chiefs' Super Bowl to lose, because Patrick Mahomes loses his number one receiver in Tyreek Hill and just has like cast-offs from Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, Marquez Scantling, MVS, Marquez Valdez Scantling. No, it's not Marquez. I can't remember the brother's first name. Jeez, this is terrible. And then it's like Jerick McKinnon is from like, I think Minnesota, like the play for the Vikings, like all these different parts. And this guy still throws for 5,000 yards. I mean, he still has Travis Kelce, who's all world and who's a Hall of Famer, but this guy just performs at an unbelievable level. Now, San Francisco has the best defense in the game. And it's wild that Kyle Shanahan, masterful game tactician, is winning games with literally the last pick in an NFL draft. Quote unquote, Mr. Irrelevant Brock Purdy, who was drafted 256th. This guy's changing the narrative for the Mr. Irrelevant because he's wholly relevant right now. And teams are losing to the third string quarterback. Man, the Buffalo Bills almost lost to Miami and its third string quarterback in Skylar Thompson. So the game is so unpredictable. And because of the shape of the ball, it literally can bounce in any direction or be deflected. And we've seen so many, I feel sorry for Dak Prescott, who for 7 or 8 games in a row, the guy threw an interception and most of those were tipped into the hands of a defender, or a defender made some unbelievable athletic play to scoop the ball before it touched the ground. So I don't listen to my advice about predictions because it's not going to come true.
At least you sprinkled it all around, so
which is stupid. That's not a winning strategy. You should just pick one horse and go with the horse. Don't bet for all 4 horses. Like they're not all going to win. It's stupid.
But even on the topic of futures, like we'll go to basketball here because before the season, the Toronto Raptors were getting some attention there that maybe could they be in the middle of the pack again? Will they have something similar to last season? Based on what you've seen on SN betting this year, have you noticed the Raptors go in a direction that you weren't expecting?
Well, not just on SM bets, just like in real life. Just the Raptors were a sexy dark horse team. I believe before the season, Vegas had the line at 44.5 wins. And if I remember correctly, Tim McAuliffe had an interview with Bobby Webster, the Raptors GM, and he listed like a bunch of totals from the last, say, 7 to 10 years, just listen to the numbers. And then Tim's like, do you know what this is? And Bobby's like, yeah, this is the line that Vegas set for our team wins every year. And I believe the Raptors had exceeded that line every year, except this year. So people are still betting on the Raptors and the fan base is very hopeful. Pascal is playing at an all NBA level and seems to be hitting his player props consistently. OG feels like he's taken a step back a bit. The team 3-point shooting has been abysmal, ranked somewhere in the bottom 4 in the NBA. Freddie has had a bit of a regression in his 3-point shooting this year, although he has had 6 30-point games, which is amazing. 3 of them like 39. I think Sacramento, and I can't remember the other 2 teams. But overall, the 6-9 experiment, I think, just needs more time. And it sucks for Toronto that Otto Porter, a guy who was playing in the NBA Finals 6 months ago with the Golden State Warriors as a 3-and-D guy, comes to Toronto and he can't stay healthy. So we're missing a big piece that we acquired, missing the production of a big piece Toronto acquired in the offseason to be a difference maker and hasn't been able to make a difference because of his availability.
And Scotty Barnes has gotten a lot of attention. Like everyone's saying, okay, the sophomore jinx, like how's he going to perform coming off the rookie of the year? What have you noticed out of Scotty Barnes' performance? And do you think that's true, or is it just a second year on a struggling team?
Well, it's seeming like it's true. Like he's regressed in some areas, but also he's handling the ball more and getting more assists. I like his dynamic with Fred VanVleet where they're assisting on each other's baskets. In Cleveland, they're saying the same thing about Evan Mobley, who was, I believe, the runner-up in the Rookie of the Year conversation last year. So it's to be expected. We're talking about 20-year-olds. They are adults, but they're still so young in basketball terms. And I think, sophomore jinx, I think it's a real thing. We've seen it in other sports, baseball, football, hockey. So it's just time and reps. Those guys will be ascending again. I'm not worried about Scotty Barnes or Evan Mobley.
And do you think the Raptors, just based on the way the season has gone, should they be sellers at the trade deadline, or should they just reevaluate at the offseason and look for small moves just to retool?
I don't have a good answer for this because I don't have any of the information that Bobby Webster has about like which teams are calling, which teams are inquiring about their players, how they adjudicate their own players, what they see on a daily basis in practice, and then how they are measuring the performance of their players playing games. So I believe in Lord Masai Ujiri, excuse me. And he is a deity in Toronto. He's goated and minted forever. And until he shows me otherwise, and my faith is in it, is in him and his direction for the Toronto Raptors.
I agree. We all believe in Masai there. Hopefully he can turn this around. There's just a couple final questions here, Cabbie, just on your career. You've interviewed so many greats in the sports world, celebrities. Do you still have a bucket list of a few that you would still like to interview?
Yes, I would love to interview Cristiano or Messi. I'd love to interview Kylian Mbappe or Neymar. I don't speak Portuguese, so Neymar, I might have to use like an app, a Google app, and maybe by the time I get to them, the AI will be so powerful where I could just be speaking and then the phone will just speak in Portuguese to Neymar with like my own like tone of voice and my cadence. So like that might be the future of how AI helps us in a very small way. I mean, AI is basically Web3. And that's just going to, again, change the entire human race. And then, yeah, I don't speak French very well. So with Kylian, same thing, phone translate as I speak. I would love to interview Russell Westbrook. I've never interviewed him. Certainly like some guys in the NFL, Joe Burrow would be pretty cool. I'd love to interview Tiger Woods. Tiger's probably at the top of the list, and like try to make Tiger laugh, like a real laugh, not like a canned fake laugh. And I'm not sure how I would do it, but interviewing Tiger would be pretty nuts.
Have you been at any events where like your paths may have crossed in the past?
No, I've never seen him in real life. No, there was a chance that we had a chance to get him once, but then he had a whole fiasco with his ex-wife. And that was like 4 days before the tournament. And that tournament got canceled. And then Tiger was not to be seen for many, many months.
And I guess MichaelJordan still, to me, when I see those ones, like, have you ever seen him since then? Like come across him or haven't
If
been
I
able
do,
to?
I will go hug him again. Like, and I will move people out of the way so I can get to him and then press my body up against his so he can feel my body heat for 5 to 7 seconds. Before I'm pulled off and likely put into a headlock or some kind of chokehold.
Got to get you at those Charlotte Hornets games. I think if he sees you from the box down there,
no, he's not going to remember. He's not going to remember my face. I would have to show him a photo, or I would have to like remind him in explicit detail, and like maybe it would trigger like, oh yeah, like very few random people to like touch me other than like handshakes. So maybe he would remember, but I doubt it.
That's great. And before we wrap up here and let you go, how can our listeners here follow you on social media?
On Twitter, I'm at Cabbie. On Instagram, The Real Cabbie. I don't really make TikToks, although I watch every once in a while. But the crew that I'm running with is SN Bets, and it's at SN Bets on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And we invite you to come spend some time with us. You'll have a fun night.
Well, Cabbie, I really appreciate you sharing your time and coming on here on Vibe 105 to talk about Black History Month, sports betting, and your career in broadcasting. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you for the invitation, Giancarlo.
Vibe Talks, exclusively on Vibe 105.